After the update war of 112, every oil field in Foxhole produces obscene levels of fuel. Yet somehow adjacent hexes just can't seem to get the fuel that they need to run basic things. It's not about the production, it's about the transportation of it. More specifically, the lack of really good public infrastructure that makes that transportation less of a burden. My name is Tierlock, the main facility lead for Knight, where I've helped design and build Foxhole's largest facilities. Today, instead of overwhelming you with any sort of large-scale project, we're just going to keep it simple. Having said that, I somehow made a keep it simple video to be over 1 hour long, so strap in. Unlike my previous videos, it is very bland with minimal editing, so unless you're a facility nerd like me, I highly recommend you just put this in the background while you do some logi. We'll dabble a little bit about the actual management of oil fields, but primarily I want to focus more on actually designing of the train station. If you want to go ahead and skip to the end to see the final iteration of it, go ahead. For everyone else who wants to see my thought process when I design anything facility related, whether it be a small or large project, I suggest you watch till the end. So, having said that, let's get right to it. Alright, well, welcome to the lecture, I guess. So before we continue on here, let's talk about why you would bother making a fuel train station. Okay, some station that a train can come up, fill up with fuel quickly, and move on to another hex or whatever they want. Many times when I want to do a project and this doesn't exist, then I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do it. So for example, if there's a component mine that needs a bunch of petrol, I'd like to just bring a train, maybe dump a bunch of petrol in it so that's always there, right, on a hex that doesn't have any oil. Maybe for M subs I need power, and it's nice to just bring some fuel train to come by, top it off so that I can passively make power. Same for comp fields, all that stuff, right? But if nobody has a decent station anywhere, then I'll be less inclined to do it, right? They might be stations everywhere, but if it sucks to use and it's a hassle, I'm not going to use it, right? I'm not going to bother doing other infrastructure that can help the faction or whatnot, right? So having a very good fuel station is incredibly important. So let's say there's some oil field, they got 3 oil wells, they have whatever number of refineries, don't quote me on this, I'm just throwing a number there, and it splits off to do many different tasks on the hex, okay? So here's one pipe network for petrol, one for heavy oil, and they split up, right? If you want to do this project, you don't necessarily need to own the field, right? If you go to any competent oil field and you ask them, hey, I want to make a train station, here's my Foxhole facility planner setup, this is what I kind of want to do, that's all I'm doing is a train station, can I get a line? And they might give it to you, right? If they say something like, oh, sorry man, we don't have enough fuel, no, they do. It's not that they're lying, it's that almost every single regiment does not understand just how obscene the amount of fuel you can generate passively from an oil field. After the 112 patch update that they had, it is ridiculous. The only time I've ever seen anyone max out an oil field has been us, just when we're doing gigafacts, because they use a lot of fuel. But I'm not aware of anyone else doing so. So in our case, we might say no and explain why, but we will try our best, to accommodate. In most people's cases, though, they should be able to easily accommodate, even though they don't think they do. So anyway, if they say no, that's fine. Move on, ask someone else. Don't push it. It is what it is. So let's say you want to make a fuel train station. So let's talk about that. So before we just give you the answer, right, I want to kind of like break it down as to how we get to the correct answer, okay? Because hopefully that'll be more, 1, informational, and 2, hopefully you can troubleshoot your own problems with your fluid networks on a larger scale if you ever get to that. So here's a setup. This setup will work objectively, okay? It's just a train station, and there's a I am failing right here. Here's your public line coming in, and wow, this is a great start. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Here's a public line coming in, train station line here, you pull up and you fill up with petrol, okay? So look at this. I want you to think of all the problems right now that can come up with this, okay? Every time you design any facility, any public infrastructure, even if it looks good, always think about everything that you can improve on it, okay? Every war I do that. We might break records, we might make some crazy things that is like on a completely different level, but after every war is still like, okay, well, how could we have done that better? Okay, that is going to be the main theme of this, if you will. So I have, let's just talk about the setup for now. So most of the time you're going to have a fuel train that comes in, and it'll be 2 engines, 12 cars, 1 caboose, right? 15 total if it's the max for a train to have, if you don't know. So they'll have likely 12, right? If it's a single engine, they might have 14, but you get the idea. So the reason why we picked 3 LTSs is because each one holds 500 cans of fluid, right? So each car holds 100, so in this case we're going to need 1200. We could get away with only 2, right? Let's say while they're filling up, these LTSs are also while they're pulling fuel from the LTS, it's also filling up, right, from whatever battery you have downstream. We'll talk about that later, or upstream, I should say. You can get away with that. However, 3 is a good safe number, right? Just have a little extra in case another train comes by. So if we note here, each LTS, do some math, fills up in petrol in around over 16 minutes. For heavy oil, it's 10 minutes. The reason why it's different is a can of heavy oil is 30 liters, a can of petrol is 50. These LTSs have a cap of 25 liters a second coming in and out. It's really like 23, but we'll call it 25 because that's officially what the documentation, I guess, says about it. So we'll call it 25 just to make it easy. So when you do the math, they come out differently. Okay, so how do we fix this? Well, what are some things that are wrong with this? One is, let's say I just pulled up, here I am on my train, I'm going to jump out, here I go. I'm just going to start filling these up. I fill all these up, okay? Now what? Well, if I want to fill these up, I got to move the train. Move the train down, fill these up, meanwhile I'm blocking traffic, right? We can't have that. We can do better than that. So a solution might be like, oh, we'll just take this, and we'll take this and we're just gonna extend it. That way you can move the train down much further down and it won't block anything. Yes, that's a solution. But how about we do one better and just say, okay, if a guy shows up with a train, I don't want them to move, period. Okay, I want them to be able to load up their entire train without having to move it, because it is annoying having to nudge it up every once in a while. Okay, so that's one thing we can fix. Another thing we can fix is the rotation of the cranes. So if I'm pulling from here, that's not bad. It's a very short distance here. My rotation is 15 degrees. It's not that bad. Right around here, when you have to rotate 90 degrees and then further, going all around here just to fill it up and reload it, it's really annoying. It's slow. Again, it works and most people won't even care. But your goal as the designer is to make it as easy as possible, okay? If people tell you, oh, don't worry, man, like, it's all good, let me, it works for me, I can get over it. No. Your job is to make it the best, all right? Keep that in your head. So we got to figure out, how do I get rid of that? How do I minimize rotation here, okay? And then the other thing is we're going to talk about it a little more later, but the other thing is the LTSs themselves. It takes 40 minutes to fill up a line. When a train comes by and they pull 1,200 cans, it takes 40 minutes for petrol and 24 for heavy oil. Let's make that faster, right? Like, how would we make it faster? Okay, so we should definitely think about this. You might say, well, hold up here. 40 minutes is pretty short in the grand scheme of things. Like, if a train pulls by, what's the likelihood another train will show up for fuel? While that is right, you think about it this way. Let's say I'm in a hex with a bunch of sulfur, and I'm making a heavy oil battery, okay? And I got my heavy oil connected to all of the sulfur mines, the sulfur fields, and it's supposed to help me just passively mine the sulfur that I got. I want to store a lot of heavy oil because it's going to run out quickly. So I want to do multiple train runs back to back. If I do that, and fill this up and come back, fill this up, come back, and this thing's empty or have to wait, especially with petrol because it's 40 minutes if I'm trying to do it with like salvage fields, right, on a hex that doesn't have any oil. I gotta wait and it sucks. I don't want to do that, right? So how do we reduce this time, right? And then another thing we can do is, let's say, I'm trying to think here real quick. There was one more thing. Of course I forget. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. Okay, so we'll go with that. So the crane rotation, let's make this faster. Let's make sure the guy is not having to move the train. Okay, let's work with those three. So we got something like this. We just spread it out, the LTS disk a little bit. It looks a little wonky. There's a pipe in the way that you have to cross over in order to get to the crane, but you can always replace that with an underground. Okay, it works, and now it's at 13 minutes. How did we drop it from 40 to 13? Well, this is connected in series, meaning here's a pipe network that goes to one LTS to another, and here you have one network that is connected to all three directly. Okay, each of these are going to be pulling from this one network, dropping your time significantly. Okay, and the same with heavy oil. So now it's pretty good. 13 minutes is fantastic. Not only that, we move the crane. Instead of being on the side here, we just moved it back. Rotated the LTS, moved it back. That way, when I'm pulling from it, my angle here is very short and limited, right? So it's the rotation of it. It does not take longer than the extension of it back when it was over here and very close. So cool. We cut the time down, the usage here. Great. But we might have introduced a problem by fixing a previous problem, and that is we're not moving the train anymore, right? It's pretty good. Select all these. It's like, okay, the entire train is covered, right? The problem here though is now the driver is moving, right? They jump out, they do this. Now they gotta hop to this and gotta hop to this. We can't have that, right? Great that the train's not moving, and this is preferable to have the driver move then the train, but it's still how about we don't do either, right? So how do we figure out a way to get rid of that? I don't want to be running around. Okay, that's one. And then the other part is, previously, let's say you use this crane, okay, and there was, let's say, a guy, he's with a little flatbed, and he's on this road, and he always comes to this closest LTS over and over and over again, and he keeps emptying this LTS, okay, and it's at like 100 or at 0. Previously, that wasn't an issue because you could access it, right? You could access all three of them. Take your pick, whichever one's full. Here, if that happens, let's say this one here is empty. Oh, great. Well, if this is empty, I have to wait 16 minutes for that one LTS to fill up. That's terrible, right? I can fill all this up, and either I have to wait over here, or I have to move my train over back here in order to fill this up. It'd be nice to have the cranes access every single LTS. Okay, so how do we do that? So before we go to that, let's talk about maybe more of the having things in series and parallel first, okay? Because I feel like that is something that's definitely missed out on every single facility I see, and it's a mistake that people do all the time. And let's address that first, and then we'll go into fixing this. So how did we cut this down? Let's go into more detail of that. So here is a pipe network, or several pipe networks here, okay? In the last fluid patch that they had, they changed the fluid system so that adjacent pipes connected directly to each other form a network, okay? So every color here represents another network. All that means is treat this as a giant LTS, I guess. You could think of it that way. It's not exactly, but it's one object, okay? Everything, the blue here is one object, the yellow is one object, the green, the purple, each of them is their own object. If I have only one pipe by itself, it's 100 liters of fluid that it can store inside. If I connect another pipe to it, well, now I got two pipes, that's 200 liters. It's one object, but now it can hold 200, all right? So silos, funny enough, don't count as another object. They're melded into the network, okay? So a lot of people think silos are obsolete now. No, they're actually really freaking important, and I don't see anyone use this, and y'all are missing out because it's actually great to have. We'll talk about that more later. I see a lot of valves. Don't use valves. The funny thing is, after I recorded, I did more testing on the valve, and I thought I knew how it worked. Um, no, it's a lot crazier than I thought. So this 11 and a half seconds, don't listen to that. I've had one valve at full open give me 23 liters a second, and then I tried it again, slightly different setup. One valve still 20, then 15, 10, 7, 5. It seems random, or at the very least, it's not easily predictable. So, long story short, just don't use valves. It's just you could do so much better without them. I don't use them. Just don't use them. LTSs, breakup pipe networks. Okay, you can think of them as their own little network inside. I guess it's just some object that has a bunch of fluid, but the boundary that they have here to each network is locked in at 25 liters a second. It's like 23 or 24. Let's call it 25 because that's what it is on paper. Where you can intake 25, you can output 25 max. Okay. Silos, like I said, it's in the network, and it's basically a pipe that has 5,000 liters of fluid that can hold. Okay, just think of it as a pipe with a very large capacity. So, knowing this now, how do we use this to our advantage? How do we troubleshoot problems that we might find? Well, here's an example that happened not too far ago. So, a group came to me and they said, "Hey, dear, we have a problem. The refineries that we have should have enough petrol to supply everything downstream. We did the math for everything downstream, and every time we look at it, the LTS is not filled up, the pipe network here is not filled up, and these are backfilling with a bunch of petrol. I don't get it, right? When you do the math, this is trying to take in 25 liters a second because it's not full. This can only output 20 liters a second when they do the math. What's going on? Why is this backfilling? Well, let's think about it, the whole system of the pipe networks, right? So yes, you're right in saying, you do the average of all these and it's 20 liters a second. But remember, with Foxhole buildings, it's not a constant flow. It's a dump of resources all at once, right? You look at a queue here, every 2.5 minutes, it dumps 150 liters at once, okay? 150 liters times 5 queues for each one. In this case, we got 4 buildings. That's 3,000 liters that you're trying to dump all at once, right? That's the worst case scenario where all your queues go off at once, and you can say, "Oh, what if we just stagger them?" That requires a little bit of micromanaging. Technically, you're right, that would work. However, that quickly falls apart with server resets, or if you have to reset queues because they keep dropping off. There's too many variables for it to be very constant, for very consistent results. So how do we fix that? Okay, so to reiterate from before, this is what's happening in your worst case scenario. Okay, you got all that fluid trying to dump at once, 3,000 liters into a network that can only hold 500. Why 500? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one holds 100 liters, 500 liters. So how do we fix this? You could lower this, but we don't want to do that because we want to output as much as we can, right? So that's not a solution. We got to increase this number here. How do we do that? Well, 2 ways you can do it. Either add a silo in it. Each silo is 5,000 liters, dump, you add a silo, maybe you're in between these two pipes here, and well, voila, you got 5,500 liters you can hold. It is larger than this 3,000 number. Ta-da! It will not backfill here until your network fills up first. Okay, which is what we want. Or you say, well, do I really need a silo? I got a long pipeline, right? And yeah, in that case, you'd be fine doing that. I'll give you an example. We had the large gigafac war. We had our line of refineries here, and they all connected into to one line, and they went to many places. Okay, they were all over the map, going to different fields, different facilities. It was everywhere. This was all one network. That one network had more than the number of pipes that we needed, right? We had a lot more refineries, but we also had a giant network that could be able to handle that. So we did not need silos, okay? We could still use it for other reasons that we might, dive into later, but we did not need it to stop any unnecessary backfill, okay? So that's what I mean by that. In the case that you don't have it, use a silo. So here's a very common example that everyone screws up on. So let's actually go through it. You have an oil field, you got 3 wells, and you got a line of refineries here, right? Some X number of refineries. Well, remember at tier 2, if we look at over here, each one of these tries to output 50 every cycle. So you have 50 times 5 Qs times 3, that's 750 at tier 2. Tier 3, that goes up to 1500. Okay, that's a lot that is trying to dump in a cycle. Remember, cycles is different from flow rate. This does not mean tier 3 is twice as much as tier 2. Anyway, aside from that, that's another topic. Anyway, so at tier 2 is trying to dump this. So what does that mean? Oh, at tier 2, I need at least 8 pipes to make sure it doesn't backfill the refineries. Cool. At tier 3, I need at least 15 pipes so it doesn't backfill the refineries. Awesome. So if you got a tier 2 facility, you don't plan to upgrade this to tier 3, maybe you're in a place that has no water, maybe it's not necessary for you, you can only, you don't need to supply that much oil, there's, 6 oil fields in the hex, and it's unnecessary to make that much because there's always plenty everywhere anyway. Alright, you can leave it at tier 2, as long as you have 8 pipes back here, right? Bum, 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 connect here, here. There you go, you got your 8. But at tier 3, let's say you're planning on doing that. Okay, well, this is when you want to put your silo. 1, 2, 3, connection here, put your silo right here, and then you can connect to your whatever number of refineries, okay? Now you increased that network, the volume of that network, so that's much higher than that 1500. That's going to be dumped all at once, right? Again, it's not necessary. For example, if you have a very long, pipeline, and you say you're going, so many subregions, and then you finally get to your refineries, by that point, your system here already has enough pipes to cover, the cycle, the liters that are dumped every cycle, right? So if your network is already large enough, you don't need the silo. If the network is pretty short and your refineries are like right up next to your oil field, yeah, throw in a silo, right? If you're trying to produce them as much as you can. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Now, in the sense of how much can one oil field really make, right? The answer to that is a lot. So a lot of people think, oh, it's one oil field, what can I do? After that 112 patch, you could make, if no one's making a gigafac, okay? If there's no giant mega BT facility that someone's making, and there's no, naval yard, for example, that's making ships for the entire faction because they use a lot of heavy oil and then a lot of petrol if doing vegan pecans, right? If you have just standard, facilities around, salvage fields, mines, etc., and there are many hexes that are all adjacent to each other that are pretty low usage of fuel. One oil field could easily supply the fuel for 3 hexes of that, right? It's just so much, but the problem is not producing per se. Like you can have the production all set and dandy, right? You could follow this rule and have the silos, everything's producing. The problem is getting the fuel to where they got to go, right? So, and that actually brings me to one point. I want to drive this one really hard because I don't want to see this again. So we talked about the different fluid networks. We talked about adding a silo to make sure it doesn't backfill and all that. So there was another problem, another regiment. They had an oil field and they were supplying me with oil, heavy oil, petrol line, right? Nothing big. And I go to bed, I wake up, and they're like, hey man, our production's kind of stalling. Like this is filling up pretty slow. Our metal presses, our blast furnace, like we're getting slowed down here. You're using a lot. And I'm like, there's no way. I don't get it. I'm only, getting my LTSs filled. And we're on the same network. So even when my LTSs fill up, even if the network's large, it should immediately get put into your buildings. Like I don't understand the issue. So I was like, okay, follow me. Let's take a look at your oil field, right? So this I see a lot, and it needs to stop. So they'll have, let's say, they got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's call it 6, okay? 6 refineries they got. Now, when you do the math of like, okay, how much do these produce and whatnot? It's what is it? 4,500 liters every cycle, okay? And that's a lot. That's quite a bit. And it means if all of these try to empty the queue out at once, then like we talked about before, it means we need 45 pipes minimum, right? To make sure that doesn't happen, to guarantee it doesn't happen. But that wasn't the issue that they had. The issue that they had was much worse than that, in that their production downstream was, so they had, let's see here, they had an oil field. And then this was your, the wall of the oil field. It's all together in one little spot. And then they had, oops, let's do this. Then they had a factory, much further downstream, maybe, on the other side of the hex, right? Half a hex away over here, right? This is your factory. And then I'm like over here somewhere. And the way they had it set up is they had these 2 reformers or refineries go to the power in this place to keep it running. They had these 2 go in a long pipeline to them and then split to me. And then I think they had these 2 go to also, I think maybe the power of this place, okay? And then their heavy oil also had a long line going here and then splits to me. The problem is, okay, never do this, okay? If you got oil wells, put them on one single network. Never do this. Okay, some people do this now or have done that before, right? In the old system, the old fluid system, yes, you had to really take into stuff those account. You had to figure out, do a little bit of math, the estimation, all that, to figure out, okay, how should I split this up? In the new system, because like we talked about before, we have well, no, I did not talk about it before. We'll get to that later. We essentially can have infinite flow rate. Okay, like there's no cap now. It's infinite. Okay. So from now on, all your crude oil, one network. Do not separate them. Have them go to wherever you need. Okay. The output of these also one network. Do not split these up, because what was happening in this group in particular that had the issue was these 2 are going to a power plants. This is not high demand. This line fills up. This starts getting backfill. These 2 also to power, backfill very easily. These 2 going down the line was going to their metal presses, going to their harvesters, splitting off to me. It was to their forges, and these 2 could not handle it. Right, this line had nothing. Everything was stuttering, and initially I thought it was because we're splitting off to these guys. Like what the hell's going on? It's not that, guys. Put these all on one network, okay? If it's on one network, then all of your refineries are contributing, because these 2 on the ends, they're kind of wasted. Like they're piling up with thousands of petrol inside. This one in the middle, it's not increasing because it can't even handle the production downstream. Okay, so do not do that. Do not do that. Oops. Let's see. Can I lock this? Let's try that. Okay. Well, I screwed up on something, but that's fine. Yeah. So if you're gonna hook these up, right? Moral of the story is crude oil, one network. Petrol, one network. You got water, also one network. Heavy oil, one network. If you are multiple regiments, and I see this before, and I really don't like this, if you got a lake, okay, and you got, facility 1, 2, 3, right? And I see this all the time. Everyone's like, oh, I'm going to make my, water line, and it's going to go straight to me. I'm going to make another one straight to me, and another one straight to me. It's such a waste of M-subs maintenance, the undergrounds from going along rails and roads. And not only that, if this facility over here is like, you know what, I'm done, I'm going to just decay and do oblivion, I'm done for the war, GG next. A lot of times these are so close to each other that this guy now is maintaining this line, and it's a hassle to try to not maintain it, right? Because your tunnels are based on a radius, not based on the builder. So we don't want that. So what would be the fix here? What is the correct way to do this? Just talk to people. Say, hey, you guys all need water? Awesome. Let's all just build 3 pumps here, connect it onto one line, go to like the nearest central point, and then just split. There you go. You'll all get your water. You'll have the same effect. It's not even the same effect. It's even better because now you have a lot more production. And if one of the guys are not using it, then you get the benefit, right? You can overclock it if you really want to. So just connect your fluid networks, and it's so much easier. If you don't, it literally hurts you. Pre-patch, we had to worry about that because, again, it was capped your flow, right? Post that patch, it is not the case. It is so crazy just how much fuel each field can make. It's not an issue to make what you need. It's just moving it. So more of the story, one fluid, one network. Okay. If you want, once you get that down, once you get super comfortable and get to maybe like much larger hex wide systems, I guess you could dabble in splitting them up. Having said that, I have not. I have always found it easier just to make one network, and you can manage larger systems much more efficiently. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Let us continue. Now that we understand pipe networks a little better, let's talk about the whole thing with series and parallel. Now this is the big one, okay? So let's say you have your LTS is connected in series here, right? You got a LTS battery. This is what we had up in the train station up here earlier. It's in series. What's going on? Well, I have a network here. It's got a bunch of fluid in it, a bunch of fuel, and it's connected to this LTS. It can only transfer 25 liters a second here, okay? It can only exit 25, enter 25, exit 25, enter 25. In this grouping, in this block, right, 25 can come in and 25 can come out. That's it, right? This is fine if, for example, your demand downstream is less than 25 liters a second. Let's say you have, a couple metal presses. This battery's located right behind the metal presses. You did the math, and your metal presses don't consume anywhere near 25, right? With the salvage field, salvage mine, cool. You can set it up like this. That's fine. Oops. So no biggie there. If you're trying to do the train station, or if your battery is located much further upstream where it's feeding many different fields all at once, okay, now we want to do parallel, okay? Because if every field, for example, gets used at once, now they're all trying to pull from the system at once, right? You need a battery that's big enough and that can output enough fuel, right, to be able to meet that demand. So parallel. What's the difference? You have a pipe network that is connected to all three LTSs. Each LTS can have 25 coming in, 25 coming out. 25 times 3, 75. So you just decrease the time in the case of our train station by using 3 LTSs. You just cut the time by a third, right? You're going 3 times faster. Now you might be saying, Tier, hold up. Can you just like keep chaining these and just have like an infinite number of like LTSs hooked up in parallel and it's essentially infinite flow rate? Yeah, you can have infinite flow rate. There's a reason why we're able to do what we do. It's because we know how to do this. Now again, very likely you won't need to do that because your demand downstream will not be that high, right? But in our case, where we want the very best train station and we want these LTSs to fill up very quickly the moment they're used, we're going to use parallel, okay? Now, hybrid is more just informational here. So this is just a mixture of the two. Let's say you have one LTS here, 2 at the bottom, hooked up this way. What happens? You have your pipe network connected to, it's got a single line connected to your block here. It can only have 25 coming in, splits it here, and then it fills up these LTSs, and these LTSs when they're full can output 20 or can output 50 total. Okay, so why would I ever do something like this? Don't worry about this. This is when you get to obscene levels of fuel that you're trying to manage. Okay, if I am managing an entire hex, right, I'm trying to distribute things, in a manner that won't screw me over production-wise. Let's say I have a bunch of things downstream of multiple train stations, and I want all those train stations to pull from one battery, but I don't want a situation where, let's say, people will keep using the train station, keep draining the fuel, and now it's pulling from the rest of my system, and now all of a sudden I'm finding myself with I'm lacking power for my heavy oil, my blast furnace is not running properly, and metal presses are starting to stutter. It's a minor issue and it will correct itself very easily because people will not be constantly pulling fuel from you. But to avoid that situation, I can say, okay, let's say I want to make a large battery. I'm going to put an LTS in the beginning, and I'm going to have it so when nobody's using anything, it's going to pull from my pipe network at a rate of 25 liters a second. It's controlled. I know it won't drain my system very quickly. When these are full, if someone needs it, it will output at 50, 100, 200, whatever, right? So I can have it recharge very slowly and then discharge very quickly, right? So that's when I would use something like that if I'm trying to manage something on a macro scale. Don't worry about this. It's more informational. This is fine if your downstream is very low, your demand is very low. Again, I'm throwing numbers here. I heavily encourage you to actually do the math of what your fluid rate is. Do not just rely on Foxhole Planner and just be like, oh, well, this says, it's this number. No. You can use this as your baseline and then actually do the math out. Okay, the more you do that, the more intuitive this comes to you, and you won't have to be relying on a third-party software. Okay, these should be up to date with the recipes in game. Here, a quick example: 150 liters in 2.5 minutes. 60 times 2 to plus, so that's 150 seconds. So 150 liters in 150 seconds. What does that mean? 1 liter a second, 60 liters a minute, right? So being able to do that, please do that, okay? Because in the case of trying to calculate your demand downstream, if you're able to do that adequately, you can decide, hey, I don't need extra pipes for parallel, I can do series. But in our case, because our goal is to recharge that train station as fast as possible, we're going to do parallel, right? All right, hopefully that's clear. Let's move on. So we talked about this, we talked about this, we talked about the problems here. We drastically cut down the time, fantastic, but there's the other issues that we talked about, which is the driver needing to move back and forth, having to move the train because each LTS is fixed at 25 liters a second, and if it's already drained, he can't switch from one LTS to another. Okay, So let's fix that. How can we do that? Well, we're going to need, let's see here, we're going to need a crane in the middle, right? And we want the crane to be accessible by, we want the crane to access the train and all the LTSs. All right, make a circle, right? Put your LTSs around it. Ta-da! And life is good. Now, instead of using these stationary cranes, let's use a sky crane. So sky cranes have worse reach inside here. I wish the developers actually made this better, because that's the reason why you don't see many sky cranes on rails here. It's because of this empty dead zone. Like, please reduce that. But aside from that, they have really long reach. Okay, they got 33 meters reach compared to, this one over here. Like, it's pretty substantial. Okay, so let's use sky crane and there we go. So now we have something like this. We wrapped it around a circle. If you do this, you're already way ahead of every single facility train station out there, like by miles. Just comparatively speaking, there's some really bad train stations. So now you have something like this. Awesome. You have a train that loops in, and the driver can just jump in here and he has access to everything. Fantastic. We could be done here and life's great. This is all you need to worry about. But again, let's go back to the question here. How do we make this better? Okay? Every time, how do we make this better? So typically when you're using trains, let's put ourselves in the point of the viewer, the user now. Okay? So if I'm using this facility, and if I'm using a train, I likely have a partner on an Argonaut that is changing the tracks for me, okay? Especially if I'm traveling from long distances, okay, to go into this place. Previously, that guy had a job. He could help me load the train, right? By doing this, he can no longer do that. So I need to change this, right? I need to have a second sky crane here, so that there's no one AFK, right? Solo, great, just use one sky crane, but we need a way to let the other guy help out in loading the train. So let's add another sky crane. When we add another sky crane, though, we end up with another problem. It's a minor one, but it should still be considered, where, let's say both sky cranes are filling up, these LTSs here, right? Or these, they're pulling from these LTSs, right, on either side, and they're just filling this up, and they're filling it up, and then when you get to around here, what are they going to do instinctively? They're going to try to go to the closest LTS. If they're both going for it, they're going to be blocking each other, right? It's minor, it's very quick to fill these up, and they could offset each other, but I don't want them to even think about them, right? So let's help them out and just add another LTS, right? Another system, so we can have half here use one sky crane, half use the other. Okay. Oop. So let's do that. Let's add another sky crane, but then add another LTS here. What else can we do? Well, previously we talked about how this is like a standard train setup. That's true. However, you should still consider having a way for trains that are single-headed to come in to get fuel. Sometimes people are very far away. They really want to min-max how much fuel they're moving in one trip. Maybe they have a loop in their own place where it allows them to do a single-headed train, right? So if a single-headed train comes in and they come in here, their engine's here. Oh, how are they going to go back? They can't. They need a line right here. Now, if you don't make that, they will. And you don't want them to make it, because it will be very frustrating, okay? So let's add another line here, and another line here, right? Yeah, I think those are some good changes. Let's go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to just do a quick interruption here, because I might have skipped a step going from 2 to 3, but I think it's kind of an important note. So on the other iteration that we had, you'll note that the LTSs were across from each other from the rail. On this one, I have it all on one side. Now, this could depend on terrain and whatnot, but something that should be a good takeaway is when you're designing stuff in Foxhole Planner, you're almost never going to have the final output that you want, right? It's a very iterative process. I did not come to a final conclusion here all in one go, right? I might have taken 2 or 3 different steps building in Foxhole, seeing how it performs, and then being like, you know what, let's go back to the drawing board, right? One of those iterations is this setup where all the LTSs are on one side of the rail. This setup we built before. I tried it out, saw how it performed, and it was good. It was functioning. It was the best one on the map. People were driving 2 hexes. One guy drove 3 just to have access for it because the other fields were either difficult or did not charge fast enough, right? But we could still do better. And anytime you're designing stuff in facilities or in real life, really, but facilities in Foxhole, let's just talk about for that. An important thing you have to do as a designer is use the infrastructure you set up yourself and then watch how others use it, right? Because you might be used to it might be very easy for you, but it might be a little tricky for others, or vice versa. You do it one way, you expect it to be one way, but then the people working it do a completely different way, and you're like, you know what, that's a good idea. Maybe I should tweak something, right? So something that became very apparent very quickly was that design-wise, I thought, oh, this should be easy. I can put all the petrol LTSs on the right side of the viewer. If you are aiming here, it's on your right side, right? And all the heavy oil on the left side. And I thought that was pretty easy, pretty straightforward. The problem is there's a little bit of brain power that still has to happen because remember, the person's coming in with a train, right? They just want to get the fuel and go. They don't want to sit there for too long. And it's a very kind of like monotonous job. And you don't want to think you're on autopilot, right? Your brain is functioning on autopilot to get the fuel and go. And what I found myself bumping into and other people is, you'll grab, let's say over here, you'll grab a cart, put it down on the petrol, awesome. Move to the next, move to the next, move to the next, and all that. Because your arm on the crane is moving left to right, and the position of the LTS could be to the left of the cart of the container you just picked up, or sometimes to the right of the container you just picked up. Many times, you'll pick up a container, you put it down, you fill it up, put it back. Grab a second container, like, wait a minute, was it the left or the right run that I had to get the petrol? I don't remember, right? You snap out of that autopilot, being like, wait, I have a choice now. What was it again? Where was I at? It's hard visually to quickly remember what you were doing, right? Where were you at? Left or right? I don't fucking know. And it seems like a silly problem when you think about it, but once in practice, it is something that is very common. Even myself using it, it was a thing that popped up many times. And you can say, fine, dear, come on, silly issue. They can look at the map. They just got to get good. Look at the map, see which one's left and right, and do it again. That is true. However, your job as a designer, again, is to minimize every step of the interaction that anyone has to use your facility, right? As much as possible. You're trying to minimize brain power, clicks, movement, any esoteric knowledge they might need, unless it's a highly specialized skill that they need to do some weird crane featuring, right? But in this case, because it's the public coming in, and it's just anyone who can get fuel, it has to be easy. It can't have some weird, Shift E, interact with building, pull from here. It has to be straightforward, okay? And that includes picking which LTS. So what's the fix to this? Well, as you saw probably in the other iteration that I jumped too fast on, put one of the LTSs in front of the train and one behind the train. What is the difference here, right? The difference is I'm moving left and right, right, with my sky crane. Sometimes I have to put my container back on the left from where I picked up my um, container, right? I have to put on the LTS to left compared to that, but over here it has to be on the right compared to that, right? If you put it in front of this track or behind this track, once you pick your choice, it's there the entire way through. If I'm here for petrol, doesn't matter which container I pick from this loop, it's going to be the one closest to me. Or if I'm here for heavy oil, it's always the one farthest from me. That is a lot easier than remembering, wait a minute, I just snapped out of autopilot. Where am I at again? Oh, I left or right. Damn it, Little things like that make the user experience so much smoother. They might not even realize it. Or sometimes they'd be like, wow, this is a fantastic facility, but then it doesn't click entirely like, wait, why is this so different from the other guy? This is because you're thinking of these little steps, okay? Now, I did Google it just because I remember hearing it once before, something called human engineering. I think this is applying the concept. I guess this is what you'd call it. If you want to read into that, go ahead and Google it. But I just Googled it, and it seems like this is exactly what we're doing here, right? We're trying to minimize, the skill required, the manpower required to do a certain task. But anyway, that's a quick bit. Now let's continue on with the rest of the video and move on to the next step. Yes, okay, here we go. So we add another one, and when we do the math, we dropped the fuel time even lower. So now it's at to fill up an entire train full of petrol, assuming every LTS was evenly pulled by it. It's in 10 minutes. Okay, this is obscenely fast. By the time the guy leaves the station, it's almost already filled back up. Right? Amazing. Way ahead of everyone. Everyone loves you. It's great. Some people are yelling at you because people always yell at you. Being a facility worker in Foxhole is like being in the service sector. People can be quite obnoxious sometimes. But now we have this situation. Fantastic. Well, again, let's make it better. What happened here? So we added 2 sky cranes. Be very conscious of this every time you make a sky crane. So sky cranes have their entrance point right here. This is their primary, and this is their secondary. Okay, if you hop in the secondary, you don't actually move the sky crane, you're just kind of like a passenger. So this is your primary seat, your driver's seat. Okay, I got 2 sky cranes back to back here. The driver's seat of this sky crane is right here. The driver's seat of this one is right here. What's going to happen if I try to jump out? I'm going to get stuck, and it's going to be annoying. And you can say, Tier, hold up, just move these. While you're right, now we're getting to a dodgy situation where I might not be able to access this LTS, right? Maybe we're really on the border here. Like, we might not be able to, we might be able to. I don't like that. Second, despite how many times I position sky cranes in a very deliberate manner, people will always move them. So yes, they will block each other. Okay, it is it's not good. We should fix that. So how do we fix that? Easy fix. Just rotate it. There you go. So now the driver's seat on this one is over here. Driver's seat on this one is over here. Okay, not bad. Easy. Now that that's fixed, is there anything else we can do? This is fantastic already. If I see this on the map, great. I'm going right to it. All right, it's already amazing. But how do we make it better? So we fixed the rotation here. Let's go back to, I guess, how can we make the driver's life easier? So this line, I don't know how long that is, right? Maybe it's longer depending on the map you have or whatnot. But let's say I come in with my train. Where do I stop? Right? I want to know that wherever I stop, all my cars are both able to be accessed by a sky crane, and my train is not, at the edge here blocking other trains, right? Now you could put a sign that says stop here. That is acceptable, right? Let's go a little bit further than that. I don't want that. I want a gate. Okay? I want a gate that physically stops the train driver for two reasons. One, because they don't have to worry about it. They just go full blast into it. They stop automatically. They know, hey, my train is now perfectly positioned. I can refuel it and go. The second point is, I want a gate there because of partisans. Okay, partisans typically won't have that much ammo to kill an engine outright. Sometimes they will. Most of the times they don't. What they rely on is wrenching it and then driving off while you're not paying attention and driving it into allied defenses and getting it killed that way. So if you put a gate here that physically stops people from jumping in and just running off with it unless they're an ally, then you just saved whoever's using your station's train, right? Again, they can still kill it. The 20mm auto rifle is broken against trains. Devman, please, why can they kill every single cart? What the hell? Please nerf that. Other than that, the chances are, by adding that gate, you just made it easier for everybody. So let's do that. So let's add a gate. Okay, we're going to add another gate here. We already rotated this. What else can we do? Well, if I am driving the train and I'm coming in, and here I am on this engine, I'm going to jump out where? I'm going to jump out on the right side. I will go right straight to the driver's seat here. Fantastic, right? I jump out, I go straight to it, the closest point. On this side, something's going to happen. I'm going to jump out on this side, and I'm going to have to run around here. Now, likelihood is I'm not going to go around the gate. I'm just going to open it. If they open that gate likely will not close, meaning it just defeats the whole point of protecting them from the very unlucky chance that they have a partisan nearby. Okay. Not only that, even if there was no partisan, now they come here, they can't access the crane here. They either have to go here in the secondary or here in the primary. They got a 50-50 shot if they're not familiar with sky cranes. Over time, they'll learn this is the seat you go in, and even if they pick the wrong seat, crisis is not too big of a deal. They can switch to their primary, they jump out and they can just go back. That's not an issue. But how do we make it better, right? How do we guide them to go to the spot correctly? Now, this is where I will lose many of you. There are a couple ways to do this, but the way I'm going to be doing it is with catwalks. So here is the wonderful final setup, I guess you can have here. And to our point before, or last time, let's say I'm driving, I'm coming through this line, and I stop at this gate. I jump out. Here I am. What will I do, right? I will be drawn towards this catwalk. I can see the catwalk go to the sky crane. I'm going to use that. So a player goes to it, and they come here. Look at that. They're already directed right in front of the door of the building. So you have just guided the user to do it, to one, save themselves here, not screw themselves over from partisan, but two, just make it easier for themselves on this way. Second point is, when they're done, they don't have to take the catwalk. They're going to take the shortest route. They'll go straight to the sky crane that way, right? Or straight back to their train that way, and that's fine. The main point is when they jump out, where are they going to go? I don't want them going this way. So install the catwalk and they'll come this way. Now you might be saying, well, hold up, tier. This is LARP. And I'm going to say, no, it's not. Stop it. Stop using that word, okay? It is misused for everything. There are people that think fire escapes are LARP, okay? And think, well, we could fit another office in here. Yeah, you could. But there's a reason why there's a fucking fire escape, okay? So stop with this LARP shit, okay? This saves people time. Saves people the minor annoyance of getting it wrong here. They won't even realize it. But they'll feel it. They'll feel it. And they'll definitely notice this a lot better than the other facilities they use. Now, another point, you'll notice these blueprints here. So when you're designing a facility, especially large scale, and most of you won't have to worry about this, but large scale, if you are a facility designer, there's a lot of projects to do, right? And it's very difficult when you get to really large projects to build everything on your own. You have a dream for everything, you know how it needs to be put down, but you just can't do it because you have limited time. It's difficult to organize people. It's just so many projects. So it's good to standardize builds. All these blueprints is showing is if I gave this to anyone, right, and just give it to them, they can say, hey, can you recreate this? With these blueprints that they can use to measure, yeah, they can recreate it. They can recreate it pretty well. And if you ever want, by the way, if you go to, I think library blueprints, if you type, I don't think it's uploaded yet. Hold up. Hold up, view. Oh no, that was me from a year ago. It's not uploaded yet, but if you go to blueprints, where's my blueprints? My blueprints uploads. Okay, so this one's pending right now. So if you search high capacity recharge rate, flu rate, whatever, this facility hopefully will be approved by the developers of Foxhole Planner, and it'll be as a default thing that you can reference at any time. So just this portion here. I don't know if you guys really care about the rest of it here. Maybe so. Maybe I'll put something there if someone really wants it, but basically it'll have this setup. Now, I can't think of any other way to improve this. There are a couple things. One, I mean, you could change this, save a couple M subs, turn this into a overhead as opposed to underground. You know, little things like that. You can always tweak the fact that it's coming from the north. Maybe we don't want to do that. Maybe we want to have it come down south. Why? To follow the road. That way it's easier to maintain. If I have, you know, maybe I don't want to do it by the road. Maybe I just want to follow the rail. Why? Because I might have an M sub train that I can easily just, you know, bring a train to fill up all my tunnels along the road or along the rail. So those are minor decisions you can change and tweak however you need, right? This is not a set in stone thing. This is more conceptual, but I wanted to show how we got to this point, okay? Now, are we done? We are done here. We're not done on the back end. So, cool. This recharges very quickly. Where is it recharging from, right? You need a fuel battery. So, let's say we got a situation here where a train pulls up, okay? This is with no significant battery. You could consider this a battery, but it's not really. It's tiny fuel battery. But let's say a train pulls up to your station, okay? And it pulls from the 4 LTSs, let's say equally, 300 from each, and it starts draining. Okay, it's trying to fill it back up. What replace it? Took 1,200 cans, and now it's trying to replace those 1,200 cans from somewhere. Okay, now you might be thinking, dude, it's fine. We don't need to worry about this. Like I got refineries. They're gonna replace it, right? It'll be fine. You know, I can wing it. I want to drive this point home. Okay, so we're gonna just do some quick number crunching here. You got, let's say we're at tier 2. You got 3 oil wells, each of them producing at 115 liters a minute of crude oil. Okay, 3 oil wells, each of them at 5 Qs is 1,700 liters a minute of crude oil. Okay, from there it goes to some adequately sized pipe network that won't allow any backflow here to a line of refineries, right? From your refineries, let's say you say, you know what, I'm going to have it be 60-40 split, right? I want 60% of my petrol going, or my crude oil going to petrol, 40% going to heavy oil. Okay, seems fine. Just throwing out a scenario here. You're going to have 6% going to petrol. Cool. So this time 6%, but then we're going to use the efficient recipe. Okay, we're going to be economical here, and we're going to have that divided by 48 times 60 to get 1298. If you're wondering what that is, just remember refinery. Your efficient recipe, when you break this up, is 48 crude oil coming in plus 12 to become 60 per minute. Okay, I have it per minute in my head, and it's unfortunately engraved in my brain folds. But anyway, so this is the number. Okay, This is the number that we have here. This is how much petrol all your refinery is producing. And it's going to this pipe network, right? Which then feeds your train station. Now, if you're pulling, right, or a train pulls up and they start pulling, it's going to try to pull from this network. But if you notice, it's trying to pull at 6,000 liters a minute, right? We're only supplying at 1,300 liters a minute with all those refineries. This level, right, let's call this, some fluid in here, it's maxed out, imagine it's a cup. That's going to start draining until it empties, right? Because we're taking more out of this box, this network, than we're putting back in, okay? So, net flow, the difference between 6,000 and this is around 4,700 liters a minute. What's the capacity of this? 100 pipes. Let's say it's a big network, right, spanning all across the hex. Each pipe is only 100 liters capacity that can hold 10,000 liters. 10,000 liters times 4.7, or I'm sorry, 4,700 liters a minute that we're draining from the system, right? Our net drain. It's going to be 2.1 minutes. 2.1 minutes, this has emptied. Okay, it's gone. There's nothing left in here in this network. Great. Well, how many cans was that? Well, in 2.1 minutes, if we're draining at 6,000 liters a minute, 252 cans that entered the system, meaning we got 948 cans left, or 47,000 liters. Okay, a little more than that. So we have to continue filling these many liters up, right? That's left over that we haven't finished, right? To completely replace what the train has taken with this rate. It's no longer 6,000 because there's nothing in here, right? 6,000 is the max you can pull if there's something to pull from. Now we're dropping that down suddenly to 1298. Do the math. 36 minutes to fill this up. We went from 10 minutes when these were in parallel all the way up to 36 minutes. And you might say, dude, it's fine. 36 minutes, it's no biggie. Like, in series it's around 40 minutes. Like, I doubt trains will show up very often. Like, I can handle it. 36 minutes is fine. Let's say this is a really big network, right? You're the only petrol field in the hex. Everyone relies on you in your own facility. We didn't even add in the demand. Let's say you got one metal press at 5 Qs, 300 liters a minute, emptying from this. Power, same thing. You got 100 watts of power. Each power plant petrol is 12 watts per power plant times 33.3 liters a minute that it consumes. You're going to get a total of 277 liters a minute. Forge, one forge at 5 Qs, another 250 liters a minute that's being drained. Net flow in the new fluid network now. Well, you're taking away now flow coming in, right? So you're trying to take 6,000 liters a minute coming in, but you have this coming. You have 6,000 liters a minute leaving this network. You have almost 1,300 coming in. And then you have all these coming out, right? Take your difference. There's a difference. So how fast is this empty? It's 1.8 minutes. Oh, it's not bad. I mean, it's just, a couple seconds faster is not too bad. Remember, this is a very small capacity. Keep doing the math. Okay, well, 1.8 minutes, 6,000 liters a minute going to my train station. How many cans went in there? 216. Continue on. I got almost 1,000 cans, right? I got 49,000 liters that I have to replace still. Well, now, if you notice here, your flow previously, when this emptied, was this rate. That's what was coming in. Now it's no longer that rate. It's this rate minus all these takeaways, all these demands on your network. That's gonna hit you pretty hard. You dropped it from 1,300 down to lower than 500. Now you increase to 100 minutes, okay? So very quickly you more than doubled, almost tripled how long it'll take to fill up a train coming in. Tier, it's fine. 100 minutes, like there's not that many customers, like realistically speaking, right? There's no way. Maybe the reason they're not showing up is because this takes long. And, oh, look at that. Someone in your network just turned on another metal press. Now it's almost 5 hours. At tier 3, it's almost 4. It's unreliable. If it's unreliable and it's up to chance, people will not show up. Or they will show up only to realize that another train beat them to it, and then they can't get the fuel they want because it's not filling up fast enough. So I hope this was very to the point and really drives it home. We can't have this happen. 5 hours to replace a train is terrible, okay? So let's fix that. How do we fix it? We can't get more oil wells. That's out of the question. Maybe we, instead of 60-40, let's take some heavy oil out, put more petrol. We could, but then, I mean, maybe we need that heavy oil. Again, maybe we don't know, maybe there's a large heavy oil demand, and if I take away from that, I risk having the same issue happen with heavy oil, right? So that's kind of a iffy situation. We could reduce this. I don't suggest it because the whole point of producing fuel is to be able to use it to create work in some way, right? You don't want to restrict yourself. Now, a way you could mitigate this is by increasing that network, right? Increase the volume of that network. If you were to increase it significantly, then it wouldn't drain in 2 minutes, right? Or you could potentially connect some LTSs to artificially, I guess, increase the volume of your network. When your network starts dropping, those LTSs automatically backfill. And now you might be thinking, hold up, tier. If we do that, right, and we increase it a significant number, what if 2 trains pop up? Wouldn't it empty this fuel battery very quickly? And essentially we'd be left with the same issue where we have a slow recharge. You're correct. That's true. You might even see a dip in your production, right? Maybe your metal presses slightly get a little below 100% fuel time. That's fine, right? I've seen how you guys run your facilities. Doesn't matter if you're a larger, small facility or a large facility. You guys are not running at 100% output, right? Not even close. The point of the battery is to take advantage of those dips that you have in your demand, right? If your metal press runs out of salvage because you just, you cleared a field, you put in your metal press, and now you got to wait an hour, maybe an hour and a half for it to respawn the field. When it respawns, someone's not immediately going to rush to clear it. You got some more time, and all that extra petrol, had you not had a large network or LTSs to fill up, would just be wasted and be stuck in your refineries, right? They would backfill in the refineries. And then when a train comes, well, you just emptied your network and it's going to take 5 hours to refill. The battery is there so that when you have those dips in your production cycle, it can consume all that, it can fill up, and then be ready for the next batch of trains, right? So the point is, if someone wants to do a couple train runs back to back to back, they can do that. Sure, at some point it'll stall, but when you are not having a high, when you're hitting a dip in your production throughout the day or during night, because everyone's got to sleep at some point, then that'll fill up quickly and that'll be ready for the next few trains, right? That's the point. So in terms of designing a fuel battery, let's talk a little bit about that. 2 ways you can do this, okay? Either you can have some kind of fuel battery where it's linked in parallel everything like we talked about before, or you can have a fuel battery that is a silo pipeline, okay? If you remember this from the old days, it is a pipe, silo, pipe, silo, pipe, silo. And a lot of people gave me shit for that, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're wrong. This is absolutely useful. You just got to get good at the game, okay? Wow, that sounded condescending. Apologies. So I'm very animated about this topic. Okay, so which one do you use? It depends on the situation. It depends on your terrain. It depends on the people who build around you. It's up to you. So the pipe silo you can't really get wrong too bad, right? You just, if you have a long pipeline, you want to use this. Okay, if you already got, like, you're spanning across the hex, like I described before, how we had, networks all over the place, just branching out the different fields, you can just tag in silos in between everything. That's perfectly fine. Let's say you want everything more centralized. Maybe it makes it easier for M-supping, right? Um, Maybe you want the map post to show these LTSs to really show people, hey, I have a bunch of fuel. You can use this too. That's fine. Um, Maybe you want to use this because you don't want a giant battery downstream for everything, right? Right? Because if you do this, your entire network will feed off this battery. Maybe you just want the battery to be above a certain field while the other ones don't have a giant battery. That's fine too, right? Up to you. Now, it's important to choose a battery that'll fit your needs. In this case, we said we wanted to have these recharge as fast as possible, right? Here we're saying 1, 2, 3, 4 LTSs. I need at least another band of LTSs here in order to recharge as quickly as possible. Something like this for petrol is only going to have 50 coming in to my system. I need 100. Okay. Again, I don't necessarily need it, but goal is recharge as fast as possible. So we need 4. So let's just go ahead and do that. Something like this. Just rearranged it. Nothing too bad. If I want a bigger capacity for my battery, we can just we could theoretically just keep extending it this way, but that's kind of pointless considering I'm only taking 100. I don't need 200, right, as a supply. So I could have another layer here and just have 2 LCSs here, 2 here, 2 here, 2 here. So it's in series, but those little chunks of series are hooked up in parallel, so that I can have 100 coming in, 100 coming out, right? With just a larger battery size. Could do that. That's not an issue. But which one do you pick? So in terms of maintenance, if I look at this, if I go to View and Statistics, there we go. No, View Statistics. Oh, why is it doing that? Oh, got it, because of my mistake. Base layer. Okay. There we go. Okay, so if I look at this, these LTSs need a foundation. Yes, you could probably save a foundation here by squeezing it, whatever. You're going to need additional pipes to connect them when they're branched like this. Okay, so if we take a look at something like this, we're going to have, roughly speaking, around like 47 maintenance supplies an hour. Okay, that's fine. Let's look at this. The equivalent for this system is this, right? I got 12 heavy oil silos and I got 20 petrol silos. What do we got here? 66. And we might think, oh wow, there's so much more maintenance. Again, it depends entirely on the situation. If you already have a very large pipeline, lots of pipes all over the place, branching all over the place, you're not adding each of these pipes. You're just adding the silo. That silo is one maintenance, right? The pipeline is a non-negotiable. That will have to be there regardless. So you're just adding 20 maintenance from the petrol, 12 from the heavy oil. That's 32 maintenance. That's cheaper than this setup. And it behaves pretty well, right? You're just increasing the amount of fluid in your network, right? If this is trying to pull from your network and your network has, an obscene amount of fuel in it because it has all these silos, fantastic. Life is good. Let's say, though, you prefer, for MSUP reasons, having everything consolidated in one place. Let's say this battery is near a salvage field. I know I can maintain this very easily. I want this at the salvage field, and then a pipeline is just simple. You could do that too. It'll cost more, but you can maintain it easier. Worth a trade. Let's say, though, you're in terminus, okay? You're the only oil field in terminus, and you have all these fields that want petrol and heavy oil from you, and you only own, let's say, the oil field, right? And nothing else. I would go for this. Why? Well, even though I might be able to maintain this easier, if I do this way, I'm not even maintaining most of it. Why? Because all these other fields are incentivized to help maintain the pipeline, right? If my goal is just to give them the oil, right, and then on my own project I can do whatever, I go to each one of those fact leads and say, oh, you want this pipeline? You're going to have to maintain the line, right? Show them where they have to go, and they'll do it, right? If they want that fuel, they'll do it. If it decays, it's not on you, right? So even though, let's say, this might be easier to maintain because there might be a triple mine where that oil field is, this might be easier in that situation because now I'm offloading the labor required to maintain that pipeline. You know what I mean? So again, it is your choice, right? Hopefully with all the stuff that we went through, it's a little easier, it's a little clearer on what you should pick, right? Just have some reasoning for it, do some math, figure, talk it out, and yeah, I hope also I should probably clear up too why there's a difference in the amount of silos you need for the equivalent for heavy oil and for petrol. Again, it's because every fluid in the game has its own liters per can, right? And if this holds 500 cans, well, when you do the math of heavy oil and your silo capacity is 5,000, it means, oh, okay, I'm going to need 12 heavy oil silos, right? And then for petrol is 20. So get familiar with the math. Do it often. Foxhole Planner is not going to tell you everything. All these calculators, they're great for guidelines, but don't rely on it. Otherwise, your brain will rot. Okay. But yeah, I think that's it. So here's your setup, and choose the battery you want, and you'll have the, I guess, amazing setup for airborne or any other, fuel required output transit. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anytime someone needs fuel, though, you'll be able to supply it. That's the main point. And remember, with these kind of facilities, again, even though it's super simple, right, relatively speaking, there's no power plants, there's no production of anything, it's just movement of fuel. It's still incredibly critical to have good public infrastructure, right? If double rails, for example, if you know what that is fantastic for trains going long transit, because train collisions are a thing that happen all the time, but having double rails that are maintained and actually planned make it so much easier for train drivers, meaning more transit, more production, more movement of materials, right? Infrastructure is incredibly important. No different with a good fuel station, right? Having a good fuel station allows people to do things that they would not have considered otherwise, right? For example, there was a war where there was a hex here in Great March that had a lot of sulfur, right? It was all over the place. This is going to be annoying, isn't it? There we go. It had a lot of sulfur all over the place. Sulfur here, here, here. Mines, fields, what have you. It was a lot, but there was no refinery, right? So these fields, because there was no components of the hex, no petrol, there was no coal, no facilities really sprung up here, right? Just a couple, but nothing really that crazy. And the other hexes in the back line had a refinery, but they also had a decent number of sulfur. Not as much as this hex, but it was enough to maintain the people's needs in the back line, right? But a place like this, though, what I see is a really good chance to do, let's say, if I'm running a large facility that needs a lot of steel, BT facility, right? Or if I want to make, if I just want to make a station for other people to grab the petrol for, or the enriched oil, I should say, for anything. Well, if I had someone that built that train station we talked about over here, I can say, oh, wow, nice. Okay, Bet. I'll make one over here. I'll make a deposit point. I'll grab the heavy oil and or petrol from here and move it over here. Now, why would I do that? Well, all these fields, what then I can do is just have this be the deposit point and have it piped to the mines, to the the fields, whatever. I don't have to do it to all of them, but I can do it to a decent number of them, right? And the whole point of that is if I have now heavy oil going right to the field, I can just put in a petrochemical plant on site, right? If I got a petrochemical plant on site, well, now I can make enriched oil. I can very easily move the sulfur to the petrochemical plant located right next to it, and then from there, have that piped to some location, right? Have that piped to some deposit point, maybe here, some central location where now a train can come and pick it up, right? Pick up all of that petrochemical. And it's, if you're using it for steel, if you're using it for, fuel for super heavy tanks, whatever you want, the 300 mil, shooting for 300 mil, moving tanks of enriched oil is a lot more resource efficient than just moving, containers of sulfur. Why? Because a tank of enriched oil is equivalent to 6,000 sulfur as opposed to a resource container which is only 5,000. Plus is already processed. So something like this would be very specialized. There's not many people that would see benefit to this. However, if people see a need for it and even they themselves can do it, they can set it up. This, though, would only even be possible with this. Right? We're all just a cog in the machine. It's complicated, a lot of moving parts. But, you can do your part. And even as a duo, I know a lot of people are like, hey, man, I stopped doing facilities. I kind of gave up with Foxhole because I'm a solo, I'm a duo. What can I even do compared to all these other groups, right? Good infrastructure and good planning and just knowing your place in this, crazy world here, you can be more productive than half easily of all these facilities everywhere, spending all war maintaining, all war doing a private setup, only to make maybe one rocket truck on average a day, right? You are giving more output to the faction than they are. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. If it's interesting, if this kind of thing was informative, hopefully let me know. I know this is different from my usual videos. Having said that, now that we're done with the planning of it, or the design of it, I think it's probably important to also make a video separately from this one. This has already been going on for too long, but a video maybe taking this and just moving it to the actual game, right? How do we actually implement this? What are the steps that I should take every day, right? Do I need to declare a field? Do I not? You don't need to, but maybe showing you how you can do that by, not needing to claim a field and just showing you what are the steps you should take in order to make this actually happen, right? So that might be a thing. Might release a video on that. If that's any interest, I'll consider it. But yeah, with that, hopefully I see these more often in the future, especially these, especially everything we talked about. And yeah, I'll see you on Airborne. Have a good one. I'm going to be out of the way, and I want to watch if they use the catwalk or not, right? Because if I'm in the area, they might feel like using it. But here they come. Let's see if they do it.
Hearlock's over here doing social experiments.
Right. Unironically. Hiding in the darkness, just watching how they behave.
Here we have the traditional clan man coming to a fuel port.
Is he gonna go? Is he going for it? That's the driver. There we go. Yep, there he goes. Perfect. Fan-fucking-tastic.
I always find it funny with catwalks because I feel like it's one of those situations that's everybody's like, oh, this is stupid and LARPy, and then the second they see it, they're like, I'm going to climb on that.
Yeah. This is so dumb. You know what? I love it.